It is the exact moment an entire nation stops breathing. For a fraction of a second, the electrical grid data across the United Kingdom registers an anomaly. 56 million televisions, radios, and mobile devices are drawing power simultaneously, yet the streets outside are completely devoid of motion. And then the frequency changes. It isn't just a sporting victory. The moment the final whistle blows on an English World Cup victory, a multi-billion-pound macroeconomic chain reaction is triggered. A financial, logistical, and infrastructural shockwave that completely rewires the supply chains, the stock market, and the literal productivity of the world's sixth largest economy in a matter of seconds. Football coming home is a cultural sentiment, but in reality, it is a devastatingly powerful economic catalyst. To understand what actually happens when England wins the World Cup, we have to strip away the emotion and look at the cold, hard mechanics of a national reset. We are looking at a sudden, unexpected shift in gross domestic product. We are looking at the largest synchronized drop in national productivity in modern recorded history, perfectly counterbalanced by the most violent, explosive surge in retail and hospitality spending ever mapped on a spreadsheet. This is not a story about a gold trophy. This is the anatomical breakdown of a country that stops working, starts spending, and triggers an economic paradox that central bankers and supply chain managers can only model in theoretical disaster recovery scenarios. But a World Cup victory transforms a standard evening of heavy consumption into an unprecedented logistical crisis. Breweries operate on predictive algorithms, anticipating demand based on historical data. But a victory of this magnitude breaks the algorithm. The supply chains snap. Visa and MasterCard networks process localized surges that look identical on a data level to massive cyber events. Server loads peak as millions of users simultaneously attempt to coordinate travel, order food, and purchase celebratory merchandise. The immediate financial injection into the UK economy in the first 12 hours following the whistle is estimated to exceed £1.2 billion. It is an artificial stimulus package delivered not by the Bank of England, but by collective euphoric spending. But macroeconomic equations require balance. The explosive retail growth of the night before is violently countered by the reality of the morning after, Monday morning. The alarm clocks ring, but the workforce does not answer. Human resources departments refer to it as unplanned absenteeism. The British public refers to it as pulling a sickie. Economic analysts refer to it as a catastrophic productivity sink. If England wins the World Cup, the immediate Monday morning brings the sharpest, most sudden drop in national productivity outside of a general strike or a severe natural weather event. Projections from the Center for Economics and Business Research suggest that in excess of 3 million workers will fail to report for duty. For a services-heavy economy like the United Kingdom, where gross domestic product is heavily reliant on corporate hours worked, financial trading, and administrative output, the cost is not measured in missing individuals. It is measured in missing millions. Manufacturing lines halt. Financial trading desks in the city operate with skeleton crews, drastically reducing the volume of market liquidity. Construction sites across the nation fall silent. The sheer mechanical stoppage of the country results in a direct hit to the GDP. The estimated cost of this single day of lost productivity? Upwards of £2.9 billion. It is a brutal, self-inflicted economic wound. The retail sector's massive overnight gain is instantly swallowed mathematically by the corporate sector's massive morning loss. The UK economy effectively engages in a high-stakes transfer of wealth, moving billions out of structural productivity and pouring it directly into short-term hospitality and retail. It is an economic sugar rush, followed by an immediate, crushing industrial hangover. But the true test of national infrastructure lies in the legal and logistical mechanics of the government's response. A World Cup victory guarantees intense public pressure for an impromptu national celebration, a sudden bank holiday. Declaring a bank holiday is not a simple decree. It is a complex legal maneuver executed under the Banking and Financial Dealings Act of 1971. It requires a royal proclamation. But the logistical reality of shutting down a nation with zero operational notice is a nightmare for supply chain architecture. You cannot simply turn off a modern economy. Hospital rotas, international shipping manifests, automated financial clearinghouses, and strict perishable food delivery schedules are all programmed weeks in advance. An emergency bank holiday throws these rigid algorithms into chaos. Supermarkets operate on just-in-time supply chains. Fresh produce arrives hours before it goes on the shelf. If the distribution network is legally halted for a day of national celebration, the backlog creates a critical bottleneck. Millions of pounds of perishable assets risk degradation. The ports of Dover and Felixstowe, the primary arteries of British import, would face a severe backlog of heavy goods vehicles requiring emergency traffic management protocols. Operation Stack, triggered not by geopolitical friction, but by a football trophy. The financial markets must also adapt. The London Stock Exchange closing for an unscheduled day means that billions of pounds in international trades must be routed through Frankfurt, Paris, or New York, temporarily draining liquidity from the British financial center. The Bank of England warns that every bank holiday costs the broader economy roughly £2 billion in suppressed economic output. A World Cup victory, therefore, presents the government with an impossible mathematical equation: honor the cultural zenith of the nation and accept a massive multi-billion-pound dent in the quarterly GDP. The trophy itself weighs just over 6 kilograms, but the macroeconomic weight it drops onto the infrastructure of the United Kingdom is immeasurable. The victory is won on the pitch, but the true battle, the fight to keep the supply chains moving, the market stable, and the grid online, begins the very second the game ends. While the public celebrates, a cold, calculated logistical emergency activates inside the global supply chains of multinational sportswear conglomerates. It is the race for the third star. A World Cup victory instantly transforms tens of millions of existing pieces of merchandise into obsolete assets while creating an overnight insatiable demand for a newly branded product. The economics of sports apparel rely entirely on speculative manufacturing. Major brands cannot afford to wait for the final whistle to begin production, yet they cannot risk manufacturing millions of units of a victorious kit that may never legally go on sale. To mitigate this risk, global apparel giants operate on a high-stakes, two-tiered supply chain strategy. Tier 1 is ocean freight, the slow, cost-effective movement of base materials months in advance. But Tier 2 is the emergency retooling of localized high-velocity factories. The moment the match concludes, digital production blueprints are beamed via encrypted servers from corporate headquarters in Germany or the United States, directly to specialized textile plants across Eastern Europe and North Africa. The manufacturing costs shift dramatically. Standard maritime logistics cost fractions of a penny per garment, but emergency air freight and immediate factory retooling inflate production costs by up to 400%. Yet the retail markup absorbs the shockwave easily. The consumer market behaves with absolute price inelasticity. A victorious shirt that retailed for £80 48 hours prior can now command upwards of £140 in the primary market and double that on secondary digital trading platforms. The sheer volume of capital moving through this single retail channel is staggering. Estimates suggest a successful World Cup run generates an immediate £300 million surge in licensed apparel sales alone within the first 14 days. But the bottleneck isn't the fabric, it is the physical space inside the cargo holds of wide-body aircraft flying into the UK. The demand for immediate garment delivery pushes standard commercial air freight rates up across the continent, displacing non-essential industrial components on trans-European logistics routes. It is a striking example of cultural euphoria physically altering the distribution of global cargo space. Beyond the physical jerseys lies a far more volatile financial ecosystem, the immediate inflation of the sports memorabilia and alternative asset market. A World Cup victory creates an overnight asset bubble. Every object physically associated with the final match undergoes an instantaneous revaluation that defies standard economic logic. Consider the physical match balls, the turf from the stadium, the corner flags, the goal nets. These are no longer mere sporting equipment. They are transformed into high-value, highly illiquid alternative investments. Auction houses like Sotheby's and Christie's prepare contingency cataloging systems weeks before the event. If England wins, the estimated auction value of the match-winning ball increases by an estimated 5,000%, instantly matching the value of rare historical manuscripts or classical artwork. Simultaneously, the digital realm experiences its own transactional surge. Commemorative digital collectibles, officially licensed video game assets, and tokenized media highlights experience a massive spike in transaction volume. On secondary peer-to-peer marketplaces, the velocity of trades causes significant network congestion. Gas fees, the cost of processing transactions on blockchain networks, rise sharply as hundreds of thousands of individual accounts attempt to mint or trade digital assets commemorating the exact minute of the victory. This is the monetization of memory. Speculators buy up digital domain names associated with the winning squad, individual players, and specific match-winning phrases within seconds of the final whistle. It is a digital gold rush executed by automated trading bots, pulling liquidity out of traditional cryptocurrency pairs and concentrating it into a highly speculative, hyper-localized asset class that will peak within 48 hours and face an immediate 90% correction within 30 days. Every pre-scheduled advertising campaign in the United Kingdom is instantly obsolete. Corporate marketing divisions operate on strict contingency plans, codenamed the defeat file and the glory blueprint. The moment the victory is secured, a massive pre-programmed media substitution occurs across every television network, radio station, digital streaming platform, and physical billboard in the country. Brands that have invested tens of millions of pounds in sponsorship deals activate their primary assets. The narrative shifts instantly from hope to legacy. This is not just a creative change, it is an immense reallocation of capital. Advertising slots during the immediate post-match broadcasts become the most expensive pieces of commercial airtime in British broadcasting history, eclipsing standard premium rates by up to 800%. But the real economic shift occurs in the contractual architecture of individual athlete endorsements. The commercial value of the players on the pitch undergoes a permanent upward reset. Corporate lawyers trigger automatic escalator clauses embedded deep within existing sponsorship contracts. A player's personal brand equity can increase by an order of magnitude overnight, altering their long-term earning potential and transforming them into premier global marketing entities. The long-term impact on the UK advertising sector is profound. The victory provides the entire media industry with a highly potent, multi-year narrative arc. For the next 24 months, every major consumer product, from automobiles to financial services, will utilize imagery, themes, and motifs derived from this singular sporting triumph. It becomes the psychological foundation of the nation's consumer confidence index. Marketing analysts estimate that this advertising reset injects an indirect long-term stimulus of £2.4 billion into the creative and media supply chains, permanently shifting consumer purchasing behavior through strategically engineered emotional resonance. Once the immediate retail spike subsidizes, once the hangover clears, and once the supply chains stabilize, the true structural question remains. What is the permanent macroeconomic legacy of a World Cup victory? Historical precedents from previous host nations and victors offer a clear empirical data model. The phenomenon is known to economists as the macroeconomic glow. The primary driver of this long-term reset is a sustained increase in the consumer confidence index. In a consumer-driven economy like the United Kingdom, economic growth is heavily dependent on the willingness of households to reduce savings and engage in discretionary spending. A historic national triumph acts as an immense psychological stabilizer. It mitigates economic anxiety, causing a measurable decrease in precautionary savings behavior and a corresponding increase in domestic credit expansion. According to historical data models compiled by global investment banks, a World Cup victory correlates with a short to medium-term increase in gross domestic product growth of roughly 0.3 to 0.5 percentage points over the subsequent 2 quarters. In an economy with a GDP of over £2 trillion, a fractional increase of 0.5% translates to a massive £10 billion of additional real-world economic output. Furthermore, the international perception of the nation undergo an involuntary upgrade. The victory acts as a multi-billion-pound, globally synchronized marketing campaign for the country's broader brand identity. This soft power expansion has tangible economic benefits. It stimulates international tourism, increases the export value of domestic cultural goods, and attracts foreign direct investment into urban infrastructure and real estate developments. The sterling foreign exchange markets often reflect this psychological premium. In the weeks following a historic triumph, the British pound historically experiences a marginal strengthening against major currency baskets, driven by increased short-term capital inflows and heightened market sentiment. It is the ultimate economic paradox. An event entirely detached from industrial production, fiscal policy, or corporate earnings possesses the unique power to alter the financial trajectory of an entire superpower. The victory is carved into the silver base of a gold trophy, but its true monument is written across the endless ledgers, the shipping manifests, the server logs, and the structural economic architecture of the modern world. A game played by 22 men on a patch of grass, a shockwave absorbed by an entire global empire.